Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Crimson Crossover Podcast presented by the Field of 68. I'm your host, Christian Sykes, joined as always by Charles Branch and Michael Harper. As you can see, the four of us are not together again. Joey is in Roanoke, Virginia, I believe, maybe Roanoke, North Carolina, but one of those. So hopefully the next episode we can get all four of us together. I know we've only done one so far, but um, how are you guys doing? We're recording this a little bit later in the week than what we typically do just because there was no midweek game. So, how's your week and a half been since we last talked?
Yeah, from an Alabama basketball standpoint, I'd say pretty solid. I know the second half against Clemson wasn't great, but those games where we wear Crimson jerseys at home always get a little screwy. So glad to come out with the win, and then you took care of business against Texas San Antonio. So really solid week, and of course we got a big one this Saturday that I'm looking forward to us getting into a little bit more later on.
Yep, pretty good. Pretty good, man. Having four wins in a row that have all been mostly comfortable. Like you said, the Clemson game got a little squirrely, but overall, four nice wins in a row. Also got a big one coming up Saturday. So feeling pretty good.
Yeah, the Saturday one is against number one Arizona. I think it's the second time that Alabama will have faced the number one team this season. I think Purdue was number one when we played them. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. I do want to talk about that Clemson game. As we're recording this, where it's a Wednesday night, so we got to watch the Clemson game versus BYU in Madison Square Garden the prior night. Clemson looks a little bit better than maybe what people were anticipating. Obviously, they did blow that 21-point lead to BYU, mostly due to AJ DeBansta. I think he was responsible or assisted on 34 of like BYU's 39 or 40 something points in the second half. He just kind of went crazy. Former Alabama legend AJ DeBansta for those of you who are keeping up at home, but. Um, Alabama in that game, they got out to a 19-point lead. I think they were up by 19 at halftime, and then they kind of cooled off from three. Offense got a little bit stagnant, and Clemson was able to come back into the game, and Alabama was able to pull away late. I think that was Bethia's first game as an Alabama Crimson Tide, and he looked he only played 6 minutes. I think he had 2 rebounds or 2 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Um, kind of was limited a little bit, but also in that game, Alabama dealt with a bunch of injuries. Latrell Wrightsell was out, Aiden Holloway was out, Keaton Bristow was out, and then obviously Bethia. Oh, and was Taylor Bowen? No, Taylor Bowen was out for UTSA, but um, Alabama's still dealing with all of these injuries. And to be able to come away with the win versus what looks like a very good Clemson team, it was impressive with the lack of players available for Alabama. What were your thoughts on the Clemson game?
I thought the first half was phenomenal. I thought we came out quick, ball was hot, we were playing really good defense. And like you said, we were up by 19 points at halftime. Second half, defense fell apart. It seemed like Clemson was running a lot of two-man game, just getting the ball to the wing, setting a pick, and either we didn't do a good job on the roll man or didn't recover well enough off the screen to stop them driving to the basket. You give up 54 points in the second half, and just that was very disappointing, but there is a lot of good that I still feel like came from that game. As you mentioned, you got Latrell Wrightsell and Aiden Holloway and Keaton Bristow who are all on the sidelines. So you need some guys to step up. Amari Allen did. He went for 20 points and 11 rebounds, gets another double-double. Aiden Terrell had 10 rebounds in the game. London Jemison got hot from the three-point line, going 3 of 6 from three, had 13 points. And it was another game where you still didn't maybe do a great job on the defensive rebounding side. You got 26 defensive rebounds, but Clemson also got 18 offensive rebounds. But as I was watching the game, even Clemson's offensive rebounds, they were much more challenged. It was different than what I felt like I'd seen us play against Purdue and Gonzaga. And because they were more challenged, or it was because balls were getting deflected and they were running them down into the corner or to a spot where they couldn't get up a quick shot. Clemson only had 6 second chance points. So I feel like that's really strong from a rebounding perspective, that even if you're going to give up a lot of offensive rebounds, that they're not immediately turning those into points. And that is something I feel like we have seen with Alabama basketball when we have struggled on the offensive rebounding side, is it's not an automatic 2 points for the other team. At times, we typically hold teams to under a point per offensive rebound. But that's going to be obviously very critical in this game coming up against Arizona, which we'll talk a little bit more in a little bit. Rebounding is going to be a huge focus for that. But again, to come out with the injuries, wearing crimson jerseys at home, which, as I mentioned earlier, never really works out for us. You get a big win. And then just to briefly, for me, to touch on Texas San Antonio, that wasn't a very good team. Tried to respect the opponent, and from my perspective, from our perspective, tried to talk about where there might be some challenges. Was really encouraged with how Alabama came out and played that game. I think that's a game last year with last year's team. Alabama wins 100-70, and there's probably a lot of moments in there you don't feel great about, but dominated from start to finish in a game where you didn't shoot well either. So again, just a really solid week, and the Clemson win is going to add to your resume. It may not be a Q1 win because it was a home game at the end of the year, but it's still a solid win against a team that I expect will probably be in the field by the end of the season.
So I saw someone say this, so I don't want to take full credit for it, but we've seen that based on last night and then based on Clemson playing Alabama, that Clemson is guaranteed to play at least one great half of basketball each game. So the Clemson game is a good win, especially considering how many players we had out. What to me, what happened the difference between the first half and the second half is Clemson was playing the first half. Clemson was playing us with their normal style of defense, just playing normal man to man, help side, hedge pick and rolls, playing some drop coverage. They mixed their pick and roll up, but they were helping off of the drives, and we were getting a lot of open looks. The second half, Clemson decided to not help, run us off the line, and we got a little stagnant. And even Oates said it, and it got to where LeBaron Philon was having to do a lot of work himself, and he did. And I will say, sometimes as a player, you can get caught up in, oh man, he's doing it, he's got it, let's not take away from him. So that was the difference in the first half, second half. It's just Clemson defended us a little differently. LeBaron got in a little foul trouble, and we didn't have that second creator with Aiden Holloway being out. And so them running us off the line was a little harder for us to create our own shot. Well, we should be getting Aiden Holloway back. Now we'll have Bethea full time, able to play more than 6 minutes. So I don't think you'll see us get stagnant like that again. And we say getting stagnant, but we still scored what we did, and then Sunday was just we kind of did what UTSA gave us and shot a lot of threes, 57 threes. Honestly, UTSA is kind of lucky we had an off shooting night, or it could have been one of those BYU top nights or UNLV top nights, or was it Georgia in 2021? LSU, one of those nights. I mean, it really could have been one of those. So really, in these last 4 or 5 games that we've played, I've been very pleased with how we've looked and how we've adjusted to what the other team is trying to do.
Well, yeah, and I do want to mention, we were talking about player performances. Aiden Sherrill has 8 blocks versus Clemson, which is the most since the Trae Young game in 2018, I believe. I think, was that Dante that had
Yes, I think so.
eight? and he's coming on strong the last couple of game or the last 4 or 5 games. I think he's got like 27 blocks or something like that in the last 4 or 5 games. Um, I do know that a lot of the teams that we have been facing recently are on the smaller side, with the exception of Clemson, which he did have 8 blocks. But it's definitely encouraging to see that type of level of rim protection from our bigs, especially a guy that can really stretch the floor for you in Aiden Sherrill. And then I do want to talk about Jaleel Bethia. We kind of mentioned him with Clemson, and how he was kind of limited. Versus UTSA, he had 21 points. He was highly effective, probably the best 3-point shooter that we had on the floor. I made a tweet about this. The fact that Alabama has now Jalil Bethia in the fold at the guard position is just it's not. I don't think people are understanding the depth and the quality of depth that Alabama has at that position, and the versatility, especially with Amari Allen coming in. You obviously know what you're getting from Latrell Wrightsell when he's healthy. Obviously, he didn't shoot it pretty effectively versus UTSA. I'll attribute that to rust. And then Aiden Holloway and LeBaron Philon. It's just impressive what the staff has been able to do to, one, evaluate talent, and specifically at that guard position, and then two, develop it to a level where you can put 4 guys into 2 positions and be able to seamlessly kind of rotate them without any issues, which is what we're kind of seeing from this Alabama team.
Well, and it's kind of with our guard situation. So we are Alabama, so we've got to sometimes correlate to football, but it's kind of like our guard room is kind of like what the 2014 2015 running back room was. It's that deep. It's really one of the most impressive and deep guard rotations that I've seen in the SEC in a long time.
I thought you were going to make a rideouts comparison.
Oh, we can make that
Since
one too.
there's 4 of them, and
Yeah,
they
we
were
can
playing
we can
rock
make that
paper
one too. That's
scissors.
actually a good comparison. But I was thinking
Yeah,
of the Derrick Henry, T.J. Yeldon, Alvin Kamara, you
yeah,
know that whole group. I
yeah,
like the rideout comparison better.
yeah. Because they're playing rock paper scissors on who's getting to score the touchdown. So I
Yeah,
guess that's what the guards are doing: play rock paper
yeah.
scissors, see who gets to shoot
That,
the ball.
that's a better one. You win that one.
Well, looking forward to the Arizona game. This is the only game we have to preview this week, which again, that's why this is coming out later than what we typically do, just because we didn't have a midweek game. Charles, you were able to sit down with someone from Arizona, I think, last night. So tell us about that interview from cross-court perspective, and then talk about this Arizona team as a whole.
I think the first thing you mentioned about Arizona is there's a one in front of their name. It's the number one team in the country. And I know there's been back and forth between should it be Arizona or should it be Michigan, but this is a team that has 4 top 20 wins. And as much as we appreciated their win Saturday against Auburn, where they won 97-68, now we got to go beat them Saturday night in Birmingham. It's a team. It was a really interesting conversation. So after you listen to this, highly recommend going to listen to Cross Court. It'll be out on Friday. Um, Arizona is going to attack the paint and going to try to score at the rim. They, as a team, are averaging only 16 3-point attempts a game. We may have 16 3-point attempts by the second media timeout. So it's going to be interesting to see, can we hit threes? And is it a game where we're trading threes for their twos? And so on the other side of that is the rebounding, which we talked about all year. And we've played some of the best bigs in the country, of course, with what Purdue has had to offer, Gonzaga. I'd even throw Illinois and St. John's in there as well. Well, before we played Illinois a couple weeks ago, we were all watching the end of that Arizona Connecticut game and how they were talking about that Arizona out rebounded Connecticut 20 plus on the boards. We all came away from that Purdue game and then saw what Keaton Bristow did against Illinois and wondered, if we had Keaton Bristow against Purdue, would that have been a different game? Well, now we get to see that play out in some respects on Saturday night in Legacy Arena. It's going to be, of course, really important for us to rebound the ball, and I'm really interested to see how Arizona tries to get their offensive rebounds. Is it similar to what Purdue and Gonzaga did, where you lean on your big guys like for Gonzaga and EK and Huff, or for Purdue like Clough and Kaufman Wren, and you can't really allow the guards to get down there and go help? Or do they also try to use their guards? Because one of the guards that they have is a guy we're familiar with, Jaden Bradley, who's very tough player, very good. If they start getting their guards more involved, I actually think that benefits us because our guards have started to step up more and get rebounds. And just another, factor in the game that may not be talked about as much, we've done a great job taking care of the ball. They've been a team that's been a little bit sloppy. So if we are losing the rebounding side by, 5, 10 rebounds, whatever that margin is, can you make that up by winning the turnover battle by 5 on your side as well? Both teams have a lot of different ways, I think, to win this game. And I think that's what's going to make it really, really exciting as well. So that's kind of just some thoughts about the game. I've got some other thoughts as it relates to just Birmingham and all that. But we've gone through a gauntlet stretch. Arizona's gone through a gauntlet stretch. They have an opportunity to go undefeated through that stretch. We have an opportunity to be above 500 in that stretch, knocking off the number one team in the country. And to be honest, doing a lot of things that I would not have predicted before the start of the year. So it's going to be a great game, and obviously very excited to see it take place Saturday night in Birmingham.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think Alabama's due a positive shooting regression. Over the last few games, the Clemson game, Alabama started out hot. I think they made like 7 of their first 9 threes or something like that. But then they cooled off, and then obviously UTSA, they didn't shoot it pretty effectively. But I think maybe with getting Aiden Hollow, hopefully, fingers crossed, getting Aiden Holloway back into the fold. Latrell Wrightsell comes back a little bit healthier. He's not going to shoot 2 of 14 from three. I can guarantee you that. Getting Julio Bethia into the fold. Um, it just feels to me that this is going to be a positive shooting regression for Alabama. Um, I'm not going to say that they're going to make 23s or anything like that. I think that's kind of crazy or outlandish, but I think that they're going to shoot better than the whatever 26% or whatever it was from the three versus UTSA. Um, and I do think that something that's kind of being overlooked is how effective Alabama has been at on-ball turnovers and generating steals, especially in the UTSA game. It felt like the defensive pressure that the guards were putting on UTSA, and I think to an extent Clemson, and then the first half, like it really agitated them, and we were able to get some live ball turnovers that led to runouts or 3-point shots that maybe we're not, that's atypical of a Nate Oates coached Alabama team, in my opinion.
I'm curious to see from just from a X's and O standpoint, is Arizona going to run us off the line, which I think they will. I think you're gonna see some drop coverage from Arizona, and try to funnel us into the paint against Crevis um, and into Pete, and you know, are we going to one thing that LeBaron and Aiden Holloway do really well is with the floater game, so I really expect that to be big. And then, what do we do against their pick and roll? Because they're going to be tough to switch. I know there's times we like, especially when we have Bristow in or TPB at the 5, we like to switch, but they are going to be a tough team to switch, especially with how they like to, especially with how they like to pound it inside. And one thing that's going to be, actually, Nate said this today in an interview on another podcast, but he talked about how Arizona does it differently than most teams that like to pound the ball inside and get the ball and be physical around the rim. They do it with tempo, right? They're not trying to swing the ball around and, take time off the shot clock. They're going and getting right into pounding the ball inside. So, that's what I'm interested to see is how we do one against their pick and roll. What do we do when they do pound the ball inside on post ups? Are we going to try to let Aiden Sherrill go one on one? One thing that we did against Purdue that I really liked is we did late double teams. Like we didn't double as soon as they touched the ball. We doubled right at the pivot and right at the drop step. So if we continue to do that, because like we've said, they don't shoot a lot of threes. They are 300 and something, in 3-point attempts. So, I wouldn't be shocked to see some double teams come from that. So, just things to look out for, I think, are running us off the line. So it's going to be important for us to get a volume of 3-point shots up. It's like what Rick Pitino used to do. He didn't do it with St. John's this year, but what he used to do is try to limit our number of 3-point attempts. So I wouldn't be shocked to see that from Arizona. And then are we going to play one-on-one, or are we going to give some late doubles in the post?
I think from the 3-point perspective, you are right. Arizona's going to play a lot of drop covers. That's something we talked about last night. When we played them 2 years ago in Phoenix, we did get 40 3-point attempts up, but 15 of them came from Grant Nelson, five of them came
Yes.
from Jared Stevenson, and five of them came from Sam Walters. And combined, those three were 6 of 25. So that means Mark Sears, Rylan Griffin, Aaron Estrada, Latrell Wrightsell. I think that's everybody else that would have gotten a 3-point attempt up. They were 3 of 15. Mark Sears was 1 of 5. Estrada was 1 of 4. And maybe 2 of 15. Maybe I've got my numbers mixed up a little bit there. So you got a lot of attempts, but who are the guys shooting those 3-point attempts? Everybody in this system is probably the right guy shooting it. It is a great shooting team, but there are certain guys you'd like to see shoot three more than other guys. And then to what you're talking about with the physicality, I do know that Muhammad Wagi, Nick Pringle both fouled out of that game. We sent Arizona to the free throw line a lot. They had 37 attempts. I remember we had a little bit of a lead in the second half, and it got really physical, and they started getting back in the game by shooting free throws and would end up winning by 13 points. So I do think from the three-point perspective, that's going to be interesting as far as where those shots coming from or who are they coming from. And then, Mike, what you're talking about, can you also keep Arizona off the free throw line? And I'm going to steal a little bit of Tide Hoops history thunder, I guess, a little bit, because I've actually looked this up and found this very interesting. The last time that we played Arizona in the state of Alabama, the last time we played Arizona in the state of Alabama was in Tuscaloosa. We won that game 76-73. Justin Coleman, who's from Winona, played at Alabama, transferred to Arizona, was on that Arizona team. So that's got to be a good omen. And they also played Auburn that year as well. So that's got to be a good omen for Saturday, right?
Or are you saying because Jaden Bradley played at Alabama, transferred to Arizona, and then Arizona also played Auburn this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to just connect all the dots that I can right now.
But it's not in Tuscaloosa.
No, but it's in the state of Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Now, that was also Avery Johnson's last year, so I don't want to go that far with this being Nate Oates' last year or anything like that. But
Hey, you said it, not me. Um, no, I
Edit
think
that out. Edit that out.
no, no, we're putting that in. We're leaving that in there. Um,
I actually
I
see Avery Johnson did have a 3-point attempt in that game. Do y'all think that was
Preston
on the
Murphy
3-point
Jr.
line
Wait, hold on.
or from the half court line?
Preston Murphy Jr. is on this team too. Maybe he'll have a 3-point attempt.
That's right.
um, no, I mean Arizona's a great team. I think it's going to be a difficult challenge for Alabama. I think this is going to sound crazy. I think an X factor in this game is going to be London Jemison. I really do. He's putting up 15.5 points a game his last, I think, like 4 games that he's played. I don't want to, or I'm going to do this. And when I say this, especially you, Michael, with you going back and watching games, what I'm about to say is gonna break the glass for you, and you're not gonna be happy with me. but London Jimison looks like Herb Jones when he plays. If you go back and watch his drives and how he drives and shoots the basketball, he or not shoots like 3 points, but like how he gets to the paint and how effective he is, he looks exactly like Herb Jones.
It's actually not a bad comparison at all because he's pretty straight up. He similar build. It's a good. I think it's a pretty good comparison actually.
It's gonna
Well,
break. You're gonna break the glass and watch it now, and that's all you're gonna see. Because someone told me
Yeah,
that last week, and that's all I see now.
London's going to be in that spot, similar to Grant Nelson, similar to Sam Walters, that he's going to have an opportunity to probably shoot several three-point attempts. Can you get Keaton Bristow going from the three-point line if he finds himself open? I expect Aiden Terrell and Taylor Boboan to have multiple looks. And as we talked about earlier, like you want to try to get the guards as many looks as you can, but those may be limited. So not only are you going to count on the front court for rebounding, but they'll need to knock down some big shots from the outside as well.
one thing that I think that will help with Arizona this time, rather than the last time playing a physical team, is there are a lot more players now that are very good at finishing around the rim, right? And being able to finish playing through contact. Obviously, LeBaron Fallon. We've talked about Aiden Holloway with this floater game, and he's figured out like because of Aiden Holloway's size, he's seemed to figure out how to be kind of crafty around the rim and crafty with his finishes, whether it's finishing on his same foot that he shoots with rather than the opposite, like you're taught with a traditional layup. Using the rim to his advantage and going up underneath, making his floater look like he's throwing a lob. So you don't, so the big doesn't necessarily, think he's getting a goaltend or throw the lob and it looked like a floater. So you don't want to, as a defender, you don't want to get that close to the rim and get a goaltend. But then the other guy is Amari Allen, who has really figured out how to finish around the rim. To me, has the build of you made a comparison, so I'm going to make a comparison, and it may be a bad one, but it's more of the style of player that Oates had early on in his career, but like a CJ Massenberg guy, you know, where, he's a combo type player. He's not a one, he's not a two, he's not just a wing. He could play 1 through 4. And so I think that, him being able to finish out around the rim is going to be incredibly important to, with this game. I do, however, agree with your London Jemison X factor. And so when I do the game, when I do the pregame thread and keys to the game, I'll make sure I'll put Christian Sykes and I'll do the London Jemison X factor
Please
on
don't.
Saturday.
I should not be tagged with anything relating to any players on the Alabama basketball team. Um, but no, I really do. Also, you can call me crazy. I don't think I've ever seen a big man have such a quick release as London Jimison. He catches that ball. He doesn't even have to jump. He catches it and reloads and immediately
It's
is able to just
effortless.
get,
Yeah.
yeah. It's crazy how fast he can, catch and release the basketball. But I really do think that I mean, I kind of came into the season and some people know some of the conversations preseason with players or with, my thoughts on players and things of that nature. Like I said, Amari Allen always was going to be good. I never said anything else otherwise. But like with London Jimison, I thought maybe it would take him a little bit to get going, and kind of find a role within this team, especially because of just the depth that Alabama would have at the front court position. And I really feel like he could be a person that could quickly carve out a role for himself, especially with Bristow being out. Like he's kind of had to have stepped up and played more just because of the injury to Bristow. And I really feel like he's kind of maybe taken some of Bristow's minutes, and we'll see that hopefully if Bristow's able to play on Saturday. But like it feels like you can't keep him off the floor because he's a very high effort guy that has an ability to stretch the floor, and also he has an ability to attack the rim as a four man, which is something that I think is kind of crucial so that you're not it makes the defense really have to stretch out and you can't just stuff the paint because oh he's going to shoot it from three, but if you come out then you're giving him a driving lane to be able to go and make a play on the interior of the defense. So I really like what I've seen from London Jimison so far this season.
It feels like there was a light bulb that came on kind of in the I think it was either UNLV or Maryland. Like, and that's why winning those games like we did were so important because you could get some of those guys extended minutes. You could get London Jimison extended minutes. You could get Davion Hannah extended minutes. So there's kind of been a light bulb come on, and then another player you highlighted earlier that the light bulb has come on is with Aiden Sherrill. And I was going to make this comparison earlier, but we got to talking about something else. But so do you remember? Well, everybody remembers, of course, the 4 overtime game or the 3 overtime game against North Carolina. When it was when it seemed like the light bulb came on with Charles Bediako, and he turned into more of the defensive force that we needed. And it seems like that kind of light bulb is clicked with when Sherrill when he needs to block a shot, how to time the block. Because that was what Bediako's problems always was staying out of foul trouble because he kept swatting at the ball and not time it up. And that's what it seems like Sherrill has done now is he knows exactly when he needs to block the shot and when that shot goes up, and what his timing is to block it. So that's where I think the light bulbs come on, and that can be huge for us going forward.
Well, and you talk about Aiden Sherrill, and a lot of people won't remember this with the Gonzaga game, but at the beginning of that game, especially in the first half, he had Graham Ike in the torture chamber. I think at one point he was like 1 of 9 or something like that from the floor, and he was really effective at getting him off his spot and really making him take some challenging shots, which he eventually started making. But I think maybe like that was the light bulb for him was in the Gonzaga game and I mean he's played exceptionally. And I really think for Alabama to continue to win these games or to win games, like you're gonna need him to continue to be that type of that force at the rim, but also he needs to continue to play with the type of effort on the rebounding side that we've seen these last couple of games. Like he's really making an effort to really clear out space and pull rebounds down, not just let the rebounds come to him, but go and attack the boards.
Well, I think the staff has figured out that you need to play him in short spurts, get him a short rest, and then get him right back in. So instead of playing full through the first media timeout, you play him 3 minutes, get him out, let him get that rest up until the media timeout. Then you give him a short rest, get him back in, and kind of repeat the same pattern in it. So his motor is always going rather than, because he is a big body. It's hard to keep that big body running at the pace that we like to play at. And so it seems like that the coaching staff has figured out, hey, let's play him, in just a few short minutes, get him a rest and let him keep that motor always going. And so that's another key going forward to me.
Absolutely. Charles, any other thoughts?
Game being in Birmingham, I've always felt Birmingham games are really important for a lot of fan base reasons. A lot of the fan base is in Birmingham. You're typically playing a better opponent in Birmingham. And it is a little bit different than maybe many years past where this was the game you had to win to have a resume win and get into the NCAA tournament, where both teams have already done a lot of work. both teams you expect to not only be in the NCAA tournament, but competing for one of the top four seeds in a region. But I still think this is a really big game for Alabama to continue the recent success that they've had in Birmingham and to beat the number one team in the nation and to have that in your resume and to have that confidence going into SEC play. And I think it's cool for me personally, as someone that the last time the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight was in Birmingham was in 1997, and Arizona won that region, had an opportunity to go to those games. So now they're coming back to Birmingham to play as the number one team in the country and to see how well we have played this year. I think it's unfortunate that it's an 8:30 game. I feel like maybe the Arizona fans probably don't feel like that. It's going to be 6:30 their time. But feels like this game should have been more like 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon and more of a primetime spot than 8:30. But I think there's a lot of things as Alabama fans that you want to win the game. I'm not looking for moral victories, but there's a lot of things that I feel like as a fan, I can continue to learn about this team. Have we figured out some of our issues on the rebounding side? In a game like this, where we feel like Arizona's going to try to run us off the line and probably has the players to do that, can we find ways to attack differently and still get our 3-point attempts? Or, Michael, what you were talking about earlier, which I completely agree with, we've got a lot more guys that can finish at the rim. And if we're going to do that and finish at the rim, as successful as Arizona has been in the paint, can we find ways to get defensive stops and close out a game? So I think it's a very interesting chess match between two of the what am I trying to say? Younger coaches as far as college basketball, Nate Oates and Tommy Lloyd and the things that they've done at both their programs. I mean, Tommy Lloyd's kind of got a little bit of Alabama in him where he can't get past the Sweet 16. And I know there's a little bit of pressure for him to have a better second weekend should Arizona get there this year. But two guys that are young in their college coaching careers and are doing incredible things at their programs. And what Nate Oates has done at Alabama, bringing the program back to new heights, what Tommy Lloyd is doing, making Arizona a powerhouse again. It's a great matchup, and I think it's going to be a great night in Birmingham.
And I'll say this and stop, but one of the things that is kind of special to me about when Alabama plays in Birmingham is that was back when I was 8 or 9 years old. It was so long ago, but that
50
was the
years ago,
very
right?
first. Yeah.
50 years ago, right?
Yes, a long time ago. And when I say that some of the names that were playing, it will sound like it. But the first Alabama basketball game I ever went to was in the BJCC. When guys like Melvin Cheatham and a guy by the name of Robert Ory was playing, and so I was like 7, 8, 9 years old. I really don't even remember. I just remember being excited to see Melvin Cheatham play. So it's the first in-person game I ever went to was at the BJCC. My dad took me to see it. And so every time we play in Birmingham, I get excited to get the chance to watch, whether it's in person or not. It's kind of special just from those memories.
Did they have color TV back then? Or was it still black and white?
They did not always.
When you went to that game, because I remember mid 90s, that's when they'd probably have different brands sponsor it, but I think it was the Arby's Classic for a few years where you had Alabama play one game and then you had Auburn play the game after them. And you can't do that anymore. Ticket prices would be crazy
Right.
for doing something like that. But when you went and saw it, was it similar to that
No,
or was it just
it
an
was just
Alabama?
one game, I think. Like I said, I was 8, maybe 9. May have even been young. I may have even been younger. I don't remember, but I just remember Alabama was playing Southern Miss. I don't know. Maybe Michael Southern can go back and look and find that in Tide Hoops history. But we were playing Southern Miss. I do remember that. And it was just a single game. There was nothing by it, but I remember it was Alabama versus Southern Miss. And I got to go see Melvin Cheatham play in person. So I remember being excited about that.
Well, before we finish off, outside of this game, I do want to declare that I am willing to be president of Noah Williamson Nation. I know there's been a lot of comments about Noah Williamson. I think Noah Williamson has a lot of ability. I don't think it was a miss by the staff. It may not happen the Arizona game, but I still are expecting things from Noah Williamson. Obviously Bristow and Aiden Terrell are going to be, and Taylor Bowen are the guys are going to lean on in the front court. But I'm willing to take a stand and ride with Noah Williamson Nation. Still think we're going to see something from Noah Williamson this year.
If we're gonna say, I can give you a couple things that he does well, since I've been accused of being a sunshine pumper before. So he hedges really well. He hedges really well. He also sets screens really well. Um, I really hope there's something there. But if we were gonna say if we're gonna say positives, he does that well. He hedges as good as any player that we have, any big that we have. And then he does set really good screens. So, I think there is something that we can build, that can be built upon. I hope he finds the rest of it at some point.
Well, and he's still a guy that you can space the floor with him. He's not your classic big where he's going to set a screen and roll. He's a guy who can set a screen and pop and play behind the 3-point line. We saw him knock one down against Purdue. So he still fits everything that we're trying to do. And whether it's confidence, whether it's getting in game shape, whether it's getting comfortable with the system, I don't know. But we're still not all the way through halfway of this season. I think he's going to figure it out. He's obviously an older guy. He was the guy at Bucknell, so they had to rely on him a lot. And so in their games where they would play like a Kentucky or Gonzaga, his stats were probably really good because he was being fed the ball more. But he has had good games against that type of competition. And so I still feel like he's a guy that is going to have a positive impact on this team and make some big plays. Kind of like going back to that 22-23 team. And I'll use Dom Welch as an example. Dom was banged up most of the year. When he came back, people were a little frustrated with what he gave us, but we don't win that Mississippi State game at home if he doesn't hit those 2 3-pointers in the first half, and one of them being right before halftime. So it may not be a massive moment, but there will be things that I feel confident Noah Williamson is going to do for this Alabama team this year.
Well, I'll also say this on Noah. His facilitating as a big man, like his passing vision for the most part, is pretty impressive. There's a few misses that he's had where he was kind of trying to force it, but overall, like he's not a guy that when he goes in the paint, he's necessarily looking to go up and score. He's pretty effective at getting into the paint and being able to spray it to the wings for open threes. And I mean, we've done some stuff like big to big action that we've been able to do. I think with him and Taylor Bowen. I think it was in like the exhibition games where he would come in and they're basically running a pick and roll between the two of them, and he's able to facilitate. Um, I just I maybe it's because he's not used to the system so far. I think that you look at the big rotation as it stands right now, and I think that Keaton Bristow and Taylor Bowen and London Jimison and Aiden Shrell kind of give you a little bit more, but that's not to say that that's going to be the case come SEC play. So it is a TBD for him. Um, but he's also a depth piece for Alabama that, if we get into foul trouble, we're not worried about having to put Amari Allen at the 4 spot to be able to cover, you know, that 4 piece because we have 5 different bigs that we can kind of put out there.
No
So
Williamson Nation. Let's ride.
I will say one last ad for me is I hope we get a chance to see the LeBaron Fallon, Aiden Holloway, Jaleel Bethea line up for a few short spurts. I know that'll be a small lineup, but man, that'd be exciting. I really hope we get to see it.
I
Do
don't
you
think it would be
think
that small of a lineup relative to what we've been running, right? Like, because Aiden Holloway's been starting for us, and then you've had Houston Malletta and Mari Allen starting.
That's true. It's true.
this will be a really small lineup, and you're not going to see it Saturday night. Do you ever see a lineup of Phylon, Holloway, Reitzel, Bethia, and Bo Bowen out there together? If you really wanted to play fast and really wanted to stretch the floor.
I mean, Nate played. Look, Nate has said before that he'll play 3 point guards at a time. Like, I mean, back in the Final Four year, he did have, you had that. You had Rylan Griffin playing the four and Grant Nelson playing the five. And then you had what, Sears,
Sears, Reitzel.
Estrada, Reitzel, Rylan Griffin. Yeah. So, I mean, I know a lot of that was out of necessity, but um, it's really tough for teams to defend. So I think you can't play that way all of the time, but you can play that in a 3 to 4 minute stretch and really put up some points. And that's one of those where you kind of do trade threes for twos, and maybe that's a stretch where if you have a small lead and you really want to stretch it out, or if you're behind and you feel like you need some shots to get back into the game, that's a lineup that you might go with. And we saw now Phylon's become kind of pesky on the defensive end, and Bethea too looks like he might be a little bit as well. So it's just, to me, that's a fun lineup that I've been waiting to see all year, and I can't wait to see those three. Just it's fun. That will be fun.
And within that lineup, talking more of it just being a small lineup, you still have pieces on the bench that fit really well in that small lineup, with a Keaton Bristow being in for a Taylor Bowen, or even a London Jemison maybe playing the five, or Amari Allen coming in and playing the three or four. It's not like you just have one small lineup. You have a lot of versatility within that small lineup. You have a lot of versatility in a big lineup. All the pieces are really starting to come together where you can do a lot of different things. And what I hope that we do, because even with our analytics, I still feel like there are at times we might overthink things, but we can force teams to play whatever style we want them to play than having to match up or do different things, like coming out in a zone against Missouri 3, 4 years ago with Bediako in the middle and trying to adjust to them than them adjusting to us.
Yeah. I would, just from a coaching standpoint, I would love to see the staff's spreadsheet of lineups. Like I always had my own spreadsheet of 10 different lineup combinations. And so I would love to see all those tabbed, like, because there's so many different combinations that we can run. It's especially when you throw in the 3 guard lineup possibilities and how you want to play, what's your defensive lineup, what's your free throw lineup, what's your, you could even throw a bigger lineup in when you need to have a lengthy lineup in. And it's not like in the past when we needed to have a lengthier lineup in, a lot of times it took away from your shooting. It's not doing that anymore, right? So the amount of lineups that we can run it's really impressive to me, and I would just like to see how many different combinations he has on a spreadsheet.
I think at times we push back with the starting lineup of Cliff, Grant, and Jaron Stevenson, just maybe being either too big or having too many bigs that slowed the team down a little bit. Well, if you got a three big lineup of Aiden Sherrill, Taylor Bowen, and Keaton Bristow, like I don't think you're not slow like you were last year. You're long and you're rangy and you can still get up and down and you can spread the floor as much as you want to.
Well, and even if you throw in London Jemison or throw in Amari Allen, there's length there. So um, again, just all the different combinations. And by the time that we get to SEC play, I expect, exactly like Christian said, London Jemison to have it. He's got it figured. He started to figure things out now. I think he's going to have it figured out and be in our regular rotation come SEC play. Now, that's not saying he's not going to hit a wall like most freshmen do, but I agree. I think that's one of those pieces in a lengthier lineup too.
Well, if he does hit that wall, maybe we'll do some load management with him like we've seen have been doing the past couple games.
Um,
I will say this for people that are asking about all the injuries. Taylor Bowen could have played Sunday. If the Arizona game was on Sunday, Taylor Bowen was playing. That's just a rest and recovery type of thing. Um, Aiden Holloway was probably a guy that could have played Sunday as well. Obviously, he didn't. Keaton Bristow is one that's a longer shot as far as like last Sunday being able to play. I'm still not certain whether or not he would play this weekend. Hopefully he does. Um, but a lot of the injury stuff that's been going on with Alabama is exactly what Charles said, is that the staff is being very cautious with some of these guys to make sure that they're not overdoing it, especially a guy like Latrell Wrightsell, who's had such a history with injuries. The injury that he had was on the opposite leg of his tear last year, but just being cautious and since we've gotten past the hard stretch of this schedule, you have an ability to afford those guys resting and making sure that they're as healthy as possible going into SEC play. Um, so that's kind of why you're seeing guys out or seeing guys missing when maybe they're, not expected to be missing. It's just the staff's being cautious and making sure that and it's also helpful for developing depth, like we kind of mentioned earlier. Like you're able to get London Jimison and Davion Hannah and Amari Allen more run with the team, getting Houston Millette back into the fold because there's so many moving pieces that are out. That come SEC play, you're going to have an experienced lineup like 11 spots deep that have had meaningful minutes throughout the season, which is going to be super effective if you get into foul trouble in SEC play, which is bound to happen knowing the officiating that goes on within the SEC.
Yeah, the fact that you went 2-0 this past week, and again, UTSA may not have been great, and you didn't really shoot the ball well against them, but you still went by 40, and your defense wasn't great against Clemson. You still came out 2-0, and for a lot of the Clemson game and the UTSA game, you didn't miss a beat with those starters being out or those key contributors being out. I think that makes last week even more of a positive because of what you said. You're getting guys who don't have a lot of college basketball experience against Clemson, a really good team, against Texas San Antonio. It's still a college basketball game. It's still a college basketball opponent. You're getting them more run and getting them ready because I expect they're going to have key moments as well, as you mentioned, for SEC play.
well, and not only did you get through you got through this whole stretch, and we're starting to get people healthier. We went through the very difficult stretch with St. John's, Purdue, Illinois, Gonzaga, but now we've had almost a week off. We'll have a week off between games, but also the last few games haven't been overly physical games where teams have just pounded the ball into the paint or were really physical on the glass, or Clemson has that where they try to play it a little more, but it's still not it's not an Oscar Clough, type deal. So it hasn't been an overly physical game. So we shouldn't be physically worn down for this game. So again, that's not to say that Arizona is not going to come out and, make us look like we're worn down, because Arizona's a very good basketball team. I know they're ranked number one. I still think Michigan's probably playing better than anybody right now. But Arizona's right there. It's probably more of a 1A, 1B situation. But it's an opportunity where I feel like we should be fresh to really make a statement and be like, hey, we're not going away. I think one other thing we need to mention is the AP poll that came out this week, which was apparently the most important AP poll of the year regarding the top 12 and the national champion. Charles, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, always good to be ranked in the top 12, especially in this day and age. So being able to be in this particular ranking in the AP poll, I guess it's week 6. Every national championship since Syracuse in 2003 has been ranked in the top 12, and Alabama, as we know, came in at 12th this past week. So Again, continue to take the good omens. And I can't remember if it was one of our Alabama basketball fans that we followed, but I think I also saw that he posted, "You're more likely to win a national championship than to get knocked out in the first round if you're ranked in if you're in the top 12 or something." I think that's right. If you're in the top, no, sorry, different stat. Kim Pom offensive rating being plus
Yeah.
125. Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Is if your offensive rating is above 125, which it is currently right now in Kim Pom for Alabama, you're more likely to win a national championship than to get knocked out in the first round. And Christian, I know you brought this up in the past. You get past that first game in a two-game stretch in the NCAA tournament. Alabama's been really, really good in that second game because it's really hard not only to scout Alabama, but then to be able to deal with that pace in basically a back-to-back situation.
Alabama has lost one game in the second game of a weekend under head
Two.
coach. Is it two?
Florida and Duke last year. Florida and
Oh, no,
SEC
no. I'm talking about in the NCAA tournament.
NCAA tournament. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes, that
Yeah.
is correct. Yes.
Duke is the only team to have beaten us on a short, what I would call short rest in the NCAA tournament. And that's not surprising. Duke had Cooper Flag, they had Sion James, they had Cotton Knippel, all, first round draft picks in the NBA. Like that's
Malawatch was probably the difference,
Oh,
honestly.
and Malawatch too. That's four NBA draft picks right there, that are now contributing at a significant level. Maybe not Malawatch, but I know Khan and Sion and obviously Cooper Flag are contributing at a very high level. And then you didn't even have was it Tyrese Proctor that was on that Duke team?
Mhm.
I think that was his name. He's also, that Duke team was insane. So that's not unsurprising to run into a buzzsaw that was Duke, but um, you put them on short rest with the pace that we're playing at, and like I said in the preseason, I still think that this, for as good as Alabama has been so far in this stretch, where they're what, like 8-2. Alabama's not anywhere near their ceiling, offensively or defensively. You're still dealing with injuries. You're still not 100% there. I think while the shooting has been good, I think that there's a next level that you haven't seen from this Alabama team that once it gets put together, like I'm not joking. There's a chance that Alabama, if the shooting gets together, Alabama could beat a Power Five team by 40 points. Truthfully. Like that's the level of offensive weapons that this team has, and I'm really excited to see it. Um, I do want to mention one thing before we wrap up. We were talking about big lineups. I think that there's a chance this year you're going to see a lineup with LeBaron Philon at the one, Amarion at the two, London Jimison at the three, Taylor Boboen at the four, and then Aiden Schroll at the five. And I think that might be like a lineup that we see versus like Florida or something, versus a bigger team. Because I think in watching London Jimison over the last four games, he's shown a propensity to be able to not just be a big man, and not because the way big men play are typically they're in the paint or they're going to be sitting at the 3-point line. Like there's not a like an in between game or a like on ball type of game for most big men that you see. But I think London Jimison has been able to show off the dribble that he's able to be effective, and I think he's going to have a little bit better fit for Alabama than, let's say, like a Jaron Stevenson did last year, where Jaron Stevenson wasn't very effective off the dribble. And so you might be able to slot him into that three position a little bit better than what maybe like a Jaron did if you wanted to really go big. So I just wanted to say that. I know we talked about that previously, but I just wanted to
Uh,
bring that up.
I agree.
I'd like to add to that quickly. You throw that lineup out there, that means you got Bristow, Millette, Bethea, Holloway, and Wrightsville all on the bench. If you wanted to do a hockey change and just go 5 for 5, and that other team, obviously they can make substitutions as well. But if they don't have the ability to really match up like that, so you just took the pace of play against big guys with us, and us probably trying to be a little bit more physical with that lineup. And now you got to go deal with the speed of the five guys coming off the bench and keep up with that too. Like you're just going to have an opportunity to wear teams down, with not only with your pace, but as we've talked about with the depth and the different ways you can attack teams. Always playing fast, but sometimes it can be a little bit more focused on getting the paint and still maybe spraying out, but maybe finishing at the rim a little bit more. And then going five wide, great ball movement, what we've seen this year, and just really put a lot of pressure on defenses.
Absolutely. And also, if Alabama can figure out how to defensive rebound, the defense that I know a lot of people look at Ken Palm numbers with Alabama, especially on the defensive side. If Alabama could figure out how to defensive rebound, Alabama would be a top 15 defense in the country this year. So maybe with everyone coming back healthy, that'll turn it around. Um, but other than that, do you guys have anything else? All
Should be
right.
a fun one.
So as far as our schedule is concerned, this is coming out. It'll come out on, I guess today, Thursday, on the 11th. When's Cross Court coming out?
Friday morning.
Friday morning. I assume Blue Collar Podcast is coming out either Thursday or Friday with Emily Smar and Michael Southern. We have Harper breaks down XOs on Twitter, but she's going to do a pregame thread and then also break down any film that comes out of the Arizona game.
With London
Um,
Jemison as the X Factor via Christian
that
Sykes.
don't please don't put me on that because when he inevitably goes plays 5 minutes, has three turnovers and two fouls, then everyone's going to come after me. So. Um,
Sorry.
But um, yeah, we'll have that out probably Thursday or Friday. We aren't doing a space. I did mention this on the last space. One, it's going to be a late game, especially for people on the East Coast like myself. And then two, we're going out for my wife's birthday, so we are not going. I'm not going to be watching the game. So hopefully that means Alabama wins. Alabama generally has a pretty good record when I don't watch the game. So
And has a good
um,
record when Sam's out of the house. So
that is also true, which is both are happening. But we will have a podcast on Monday, or we'll be recording on Monday, come out on Tuesday, where we're previewing the USF game and the Kennesaw State game. And we'll be doing post games, I think, for at least the USF game, depending on the Kennesaw State game. I still want to do one, and we'll have cross courts for that. But other than that, I don't think I'm missing anything. If you like what we're doing, feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, share it with your friends, family, loved ones, co-workers, whoever else that strangers on the street. Our goal this year is to get to 1,000 subscribers. I know it's a long goal, but it's kind of where that's kind of our hope. As far as everything else we're doing at Crimson Crossover, we have M3 Show and we have Tide Machine. They're going to be previewing the college football playoff game versus Oklahoma. We have Weekly Joe. Um, be on the lookout for Weekly Joe. I know we haven't been recording anything. They have. I'm not leaking, but they have two huge interviews coming out later this month. So excited about that. And then we have Golf Adjacent with Cannon Claycomb. We'll be starting that back up once he gets started with the hotel planner tour in January or February. So other than that, I think we're good to sign off, and we will talk again soon. Roll Tide.
roll tide.
Roll Tide.